What's the charts looking like for Hex, man?
Sure,
Inquiring
yeah.
minds want to know.
Yeah, so the USD chart looks pretty good. So it's definitely what I would consider it's definitely like in a good spot for accumulation. If you actually look at where the price is trending right now, it's what I would consider like it's in a good spot where you can like if you don't already have a bag or this is really just for new people that are coming in. This is actually kind of an opportune moment to introduce people because as the price is going sideways, they're actually getting a much lower risk entry, even just for like their long term stakes that can pay off like pretty substantially. So, yeah, it's in a good spot. It just might take uh, whenever you have like an impulse like to the upside, it's indeterminate as to like when that's specifically going to happen. But like the chart pattern that I'm seeing for Hex is very typical that you see where you like the asset accumulates for a while, but then when it makes a move, like it's really fast. So, um, you have you have these opportunities with like Bitcoin, Ethereum, where the price is going sideways, and that's like really like when everybody else is like all bearish or whatever. Like those are usually the times to really start buying, like and just basically ease your way in. Even for now that we're basically past the big payday, the share price is still pretty reasonable for long-term stakes. So you're still getting in relatively early. Like even if you don't have those Genesis shares, like there's still a huge risk to reward opportunity for those long-term stakes. So I would say everything looks like it's on track. It's really just once there is, let's say, like another impulsive wave for Hex, that'll set some kind of trend line, I guess, that the price chart's following. But you basically have to wait for that impulsive wave to happen to like have an idea of like what that macro trend line looks like. Because at the end of the day, like when you look at charts, you're basically looking at it in hindsight. Like you don't know what's going to happen in very short time frames. But over time, like as you get more and more data, you can start to get like better predictive models as far as like what the price is going to do. But I definitely took advantage of the discount after the big payday. That's the good thing is like a lot of short term speculators were shaken out, so they don't have really many coins that they can dump on the market, and that just basically is a good opportunity for somebody to dollar cost average their way in, and then just understand the staking because I would say like moving forward, the stakers are going to make some pretty wild gains, like especially those that have a ladder that goes out 10 to 15 years. Because I mean, you're talking like some absolutely mind-blowing multiples as to what the stack size increase will be. So I would definitely advocate having like kind of a staking focused mindset, and then you could still hold some liquid hex as well. But definitely keep in mind like the long-term stakers are going to make the most money by far, like just with the amount of interest that they're going to be getting, especially with 40% APY right now. Because I really do think like the right now the sweet spot that's still like relatively reasonable to get in, while the opportunities there is actually going to be the squid bracket. Like that's still relatively affordable for people to get into that bracket. But after once the next like impulsive wave starts, it's going to cost like $20,000 just for somebody to break into like the squid bracket, and you're going to start to see over time. Like I really do think the whales, the dolphins, the squids, the sharks, like the squids are kind of like the lower tier version of that, but it's going to be such there's a good chance it's going to turn into a lot of money where 10 or 15 years from now, that could be basically the guy on these whale bots that's moving like comparable today, like anywhere from like 20 to 100 Bitcoin is kind of what I think is in the realm of possibilities. So I am super bullish long term. And while the opportunities there, definitely definitely accumulate while you have the chance, because there's really not much of liquid supply left. The other thing to look out for, this is on hex.vision. If you look at the staking ladder, there's a lot of stakes that are coming out during months of December and I think January, but then after that it starts to taper off. So generally, like when you get the like a lot of supply hitting the market for a while, it's that kind of goes against the idea of like the price immediately going up. But after a while, like as that supply gets churned, eventually those coins aren't going to be on the market anymore, and it's going to get to a point where the supply dries up, and then you have these big impulsive waves like you saw during the big payday. Except this time, the next impulsive wave for HEX, there's actually going to be less supply hitting the market, because the big payday had a lot of short-term speculators. The people that got the Genesis shares, because they received the big payday bonus, the emergency unstake penalties are far more severe. Like even if you have stakes that are 2 to 3 years out, doing an emergency unstake on those, like you'll wreck your bag. For a lot of those Genesis shares, which is a fair payout. It's like you get the money, but you're committed. So there's more of a disincentive for people to emergency unstake moving forward, because of the people that were able to get in during the first during the adoption amplifier. So I would say I still think there's going to be a big wave sometime before, I would say between now and, I'm just going to say up until the end of Q1. I'm going to give it a pretty big range, but somewhere within that range, I do think there is going to be, it's going to start to slowly turn around and then have another big wave up sometime in 2021.
Nice.
Looking at crypto. Hold on.
Yes. I like your analysis. Good stuff.
Yeah, I do have sorry, I think you're about to say something there.
No, go ahead.
I was just gonna say, like I have a chart like in front of me, but it's I don't think there's like a way for me to like show it on screen as to what I'm looking at long term. But what's that?
You can share your screen. Just go into the share screen and then hit application window.
Sure. Let me give that a try.
Or the Chrome tab. That way, it only shows just the chart.
Yeah, you can just do the not the Chrome tab, but yeah, you can do the Chrome tab or just application.
Did you say $20,000 to become a squid or more?
Yeah, it's gonna happen. Like it's definitely gonna happen sometime this cycle. That I have a very high, because the other consideration is when you have a lot of these stakes that are coming out over the next couple months, it's also going to push up the share price. So you have to basically kind of measure that.
Definitely going to happen. I mean, the share price is going to start to rise as those stakes come out.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Let me try.
Shout out to all my squids, Squid Gang, baby.
Squid Gang.
Squid Gang.
Okay, I have the hex chart here. Let me know if you guys are able to see this.
Yeah.
Here we go.
Okay. So kind of what I'm personally looking at is, if you look back to when HEX first launched on the exchange, it's really just waiting to finally confirm like how steep its trend line is going to be. So what I mean is, like, you can really only analyze like markets in hindsight. Is at a certain point you'll get the price could go sideways for a while, it could dip down, but at a certain point it is going to start to shift back up. And what I'm seeing is more of like an ascending wedge. And generally, like once these break out, like these chart patterns happen very frequently, and generally once these break out, you can get a really big expansion again off those macro trend lines that put it basically back into price discovery. So to kind of even just kind of reflect back on the prior price history, you could consider this one a small expansion. What HEX had over the last 8 months, this was a much larger expansion, and I expect that when it finally does pull off its macro trend line again, it's very possible you could basically have an even larger expansion, and then it'll come back down and then hit its long-term trend line. So you see this a lot on Bitcoin and Ethereum are the two easiest ones to reference off of in terms of seeing what these expansions look like. But generally, with each expansion phase, it takes longer. Like after each successive one, it takes longer before you enter the next one. So although the price has come down after the big payday, this is pretty normal. Like these kinds of moves happen pretty frequently in crypto, and to me, it's just further accumulating in its current ascending wedge until it finally breaks out. And so far, I'm gonna kind of stick to sometime during Q1 of 2021 where you could start to see it pull off its trend line again and then go back into price discovery mode. Also, don't use the targets I have here. I am just drawing a line to illustrate. I don't think HEX is going to hit $2 this cycle, but I can definitely see it hitting somewhere around like north of 50 cents, maybe even higher. Sometime this cycle, I think is very reasonable. And so it's the price range on this is pretty massive. And from like a long-term staking perspective, it's pretty good to have a long-term mindset, because during this bear market, there is going to be a bear market for everything in this market. I mean, you get these really big expansions, and then the market contracts until it hits like a new fair market value. But I do expect like there's going to be a big opportunity to collect on emergency unstakes during the time period that will set up your bags for the cycle afterwards. So that's why I personally I'm way more biased towards the staking ladder and letting the market just kind of do its thing. And then perhaps like, this cycle you can consider like your scale out strategy and so on. Cause I know personally, like I am going to be, if the prices get to like an absurd level and if I have stake coming out, I'm absolutely going to sell those. And then I'm going to plan on, and that's for all my cryptos. Like I'm going to sell my Ethereum, I'm going to sell my Bitcoin, and I'm going to read my bags sometime during the next bear market, but still keep a certain percentage, because if you mistime it, you can get totally wrecked. But that's kind of the idea, is like you want to, at a certain point, this is for everything. Like you have the opportunity to de-risk and then move money into like other assets to spread out your risk so that you're not concentrated in one thing only. So I would say this cycle, HEX is one of the bigger opportunities I see in terms of price appreciation, because the game theory is so well designed, especially now that the big payday has shaken out like a lot of those speculators that were just looking to try and flip. So now that they're gone, you have whatever liquid supply is left, plus perhaps you have some of the some more stakes coming over the next 2 months, and then after that, there's really not much supply hitting the market. So that's the other thing, that the inflation is really low. That's something I actually look for in coins, because I don't want to buy like a cryptocurrency where the inflation is like, where the total circulating supply inflation is like something like 50% or something, which you see on a lot of these ERC tokens. But the thing is, like for the staker class, you're getting 40% like APY on something that has 3.6% inflation. So you're actually getting a massive amount of HEX from that.